Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Borough Fan TV and the Monday Night Show with me, James Hutchinson. Tonight, we're going to look back at the highs of the victory against Derby County to the lows of the defeat at Huddersfield at the weekend. Borough fans, what's your take on the last two fixtures? There's also going to be a look ahead to what's going to be a testing week, I think, on the pitch for Borough. Swansea at home Wednesday night and a trip to the Potteries at the weekend to take on Stoke City. Help me to do this tonight is Joe Scott. Glad to have you on board again, Joe. You're okay, pal?
I'm not too bad, Hutchy.
Good stuff, good stuff. So as always, Borough fans, we'd love to hear your thoughts. So get in touch with us on the Monday Night Show and share your views. So, Joe, we'll start with the positive stuff first. We'll look back at the Derby game last week. Patrick Roberts and Duncan Watmore started. What did you make of their contributions, Joe?
I thought they were excellent. You know, obviously most fans were begging for Patrick Roberts to get even a start in the team up to that point. So it was good to see him get a start in the game. And also, Watmore actually did okay against Derby. He actually got a decent run out and with an assist to boot for a Sambalonga's goal and got the ball rolling after that. Because I think Derby were absolutely woeful that day.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I know you mentioned there about Watmore setting up the goal for Britt. And like you said about Derby, for me, Joe, they reminded me a lot of us last season under Jonathan Woodgate. I just thought they had some little pretty phases of football, but they looked a bit toothless and certainly weak at the back. Would you go along with that?
Yeah, considering the form that Derby were in going into the game, they were like, it was surprising to see where they were. But obviously, I think they're too big to go down. I think Derby, to be honest, and I think we just caught them at the right time, and obviously we grinded out a result against them. But Derby, to be honest, looking at their team, it was only Max Baird who I can only pin out was the main positive for them in that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you're right there. There was a little spell at the start of the second half where Derby got into the game a bit more. And at that point, I think Neil Warnock decided he would replace Roberts and he'd replace Watmore, and he brought on Jed Spence and Marvin Johnson, and that worked really well for us, didn't it?
Yeah, because I think Roberts and Watmore were going a little tired towards the midpoint of second half, and I think Spence and Johnson, I mean, to be fair, even though they don't like the pace that much, they've made a difference to the second half for us, and obviously we got the goals in the second half. Obviously, the fortunate one with the Matt Clark own goal, and then Marv got himself on the score sheet after that, and we grinded out a good result against Derby in the end for a good midweek result.
Yeah, it was. And I think who impressed me most on the evening, Joe, was the midfield pair of George Saville and Johnny Howson. I think Saville's actually growing in confidence as the season's going on, and he seems to be winning the fans over as well, I think. And obviously, he didn't set his transfer fee when he came to us last year. We paid an awful lot of money for him. 2 years ago now. But he's starting to justify that outlay, isn't he? What do you make of George Saville's performances, first of all, this season?
Yeah, Saville's been excellent because I remember the time when we brought him from Millwall, and I think most of us were probably expecting a double deal, what we did with Millwall, with both him and possibly Jed Wallace, but obviously Wallace never failed to materialise, and we got Saville instead. But he struggled to fit in at times when he started off at the Borough, but this season I think it's probably been one of his best seasons so far to date. He's contributing well. He's getting some goals into his belt, and I think it's going to be a big contribution to us, I think, for this season going forward.
And what did you make of Neil Warnock's comments during the week when he said that Johnny Howson's the best midfielder in the Championship? Some claim that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's surprising because I think Warnock's faith in the players has obviously proved throughout the last couple of games, and also what can we expect more for this season? I think Roberts, both Saville and Roberts have got proven to be more than just big names for themselves in the Championship.
Yeah, and like you mentioned earlier there as well, the goal from Marvin Johnson, or near Marv, as some people are now calling him now. It was some finish, that wasn't it? It was a great way to finish the evening, top the performance off.
Yeah, I think most Borough fans were surprised about Marvin Johnson's getting into the Neil Warnock's team from the start, because I think most Borough fans were more critical of Johnson ever since Warnock came in. But I think this season, after he signed that 1 year deal, I think he's got the ball rolling in terms of his goal scoring ability, which is it's very unheard of from Marvin Johnson ever since he came to the Borough. But I think he's having as good like Saville. I think this season he's having one of the best seasons in a Borough shirt to date.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point you make, Joe. I mean, after the Derby game, a couple of days later, it was announced that championship clubs, or some championship clubs, will be able to welcome fans back into the ground from this midweek. Unfortunately, Borough aren't going to be one of them. What's your thoughts on this? Obviously, there's some teams that are allowed 2,000 fans in. Do you think it's an unfair advantage, or are you just happy to see fans back in the ground, Joe?
I think it's obviously a case of I'm obviously happy to have fans back in the ground. Obviously, that's been missed for the last 7 or 8 or so months or so, but it's just unfortunate for us. We're in the higher tier of the coronavirus restrictions at the moment, which is obviously gotten for me personally not to be back at the Riverside yet. But I'm just happy that some clubs from in and about the country are getting the chance to get back into their grounds again, which is obviously good for the clubs and obviously good for their revenue as well.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, Jonathan. Hope you're well, pal. I agree with you there. I think it's just good to have some fans back in the ground, and hopefully it won't be too far away, Joe, before fans of all clubs are allowed to go and follow the teams and gradually get us back to the numbers where everybody can go and watch the match, not the fortunate couple of thousand. Another talking point that came up towards the end of last week was some transfer speculation surrounding a couple of Borough players. Firstly, one of them's Marcus Bettinelli. He's on a season-long loan from Fulham, but obviously he's in the final year of his contract at Fulham, and there's some whispers going around that some Premier League clubs may be interested in signing him on a permanent deal in January. What would your feelings be on that, Joe, if he was to depart the Borough?
Well, it certainly causes a headache of trying to find a goalkeeper in the January transfer window, because I don't think we can rely heavily on Stojanovic. But to be fair, Marcus Bettinelli has actually done well for us since he came in. But I think most Borough fans will say about the errors, which we'll get onto in certain games. But I think it's settled into the squad well, and I think there's some performances in the season which he's actually done well for the team. So it'd be a shame if he goes, but if he does go, it's just a case of finding a new goalkeeper in January when the time comes.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that you made there, Joe, about the fact that it probably wouldn't give you much time to replace him. And it's obviously the disruption it causes, because obviously the keeper and the defence, they build up a relationship. And before Saturday, I mean, we had the best defence in the 4 divisions. And even now, even after Saturday, it's still been a really impressive start to the season for the defence. And Bettinelli's been central to all of that. And as a defensive unit, they've all worked well. And it would be really disruptive if we lost him and then had to bring another keeper in. But like I say, that may not happen. It's just speculation that's out there at the moment. And another player whose speculation's been surrounding, and I suppose it's inevitable with the quality of performances he's put in so far this season, is Dale Fry. Where do you stand on the situation regarding Dale, Joe?
I think Dale. I think if it was a high bid for him, obviously, I think he came close to. There was more speculation in him about going to Burnley in the last window, but I think it all depends on if Burnley come back in for him. It's just a matter of whether they'll let James Tarkowski go to West Ham in the next window, and obviously we will probably want asking for probably around about, say, 20 million by the form he's been in this season for Dale Fry, to be fair.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point you make. I mean, Borough fans, let us know. The January transfer window, it's only a month away tomorrow. So what do you think? A lot of Borough fans will be saying we should be adding to the squad, let alone losing players, especially players that have been so important to our positive start of the season. But get in touch with us. Let us know what you think, Borough fans. So, Joe, we can't put it off any longer. We'll have to look back at the game at Huddersfield at the weekend. I must admit I was a little bit concerned when I heard 1 or 2 reports before the game that Neil Warnock was voicing his concerns about the workload that Borough have got up to Christmas and saying 7 games we've got to do before now and Christmas before we get a break. So do you think in a way it was almost inevitable that we were going to have the type of performance we saw on Saturday at Huddersfield?
Well, as the old saying goes, you can't win every game. But I think most of us were surprised that the big defeat, like obviously against, apart from sides that have been relegated from the Premier League, you wouldn't have thought that Huddersfield would be the ones that actually topple us over in the performance we give. And obviously, I think it's just a case that we just had one of those off days against Huddersfield, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I think it's a fair point. I'll be honest, Joe, before the game on Saturday, I was supremely confident that we'd get at least a point there. I couldn't see us losing. And in a way, I think it just shows that you can't take anything for granted in the Championship, no matter who you're playing against, can you?
Nah, because it's not the Championship's not an easy league to predict, or let alone try to base on the result, judging on paper. But I mean, to be fair, I think there were times in the game that Huddersfield were actually the better team, especially around the midpoint of the second half. They absolutely battered us possession-wise. But I think it was just one of them games where I think we could have took at least a point from, but until a sloppy 2 minutes from us actually cost us the game.
I mean, in the first 30 minutes, Joe, I mean, we really could have seen the game off in that time, the chances we had, and we only had the strike from Marvin Johnson to show for our efforts. Do you think that's probably where we lost the game, in not capitalising on that opening 30 minutes that we had?
I think so, because I think there's a few chances, more notably British Sommerlonger missed the golden chance. I think it was either before or after Marvin Johnson scored. So I think if we had that chance put away, I think we could have had a chance of winning the game. But it's they're struck back with 2 goals from Carol Heitig and Fraser Campbell, and then the second half it was just basically all Huddersfield until our little penalty, so to speak.
I mean, where do you stand on Britt? Because he's copped a lot of criticism in the last week or two. Well, I think really since his time he's been at the club, for the outlay that we've spent on him, a lot of Borough fans have been critical of him, and there always seems to be a little bit of an undercurrent of people getting on his case. Yet he's more often than not been our top scorer, or not far off. And you can't forget that he scored 2 in 2 now. But again, on Saturday night, a lot of fingers were pointing in his direction as to why we lost that game. Do you think that's fair or unfair, Joe?
I think it's a little bit unfair to be honest. I think because I think Britt is one of those strikers where I think, like I say from time and time again, he just needs the support up front. But in these sort of situations, he's not been getting it. It's just having a number 10 playing behind him, I think, doesn't suit him best. I think he would just rather have a striker playing alongside him rather than a number 10 playing behind him. I mean, there were times where I keep thinking to myself, we could just give Britt the support up front, either from Mark Baum or even from Fletcher when he's fit. Just give him some striker to support him up front, because I think it's just not working with the number 10 playing behind him at the moment.
Like you say, I think you make a point there, and it is a fair one about maybe him not getting used in the way that maybe suits his style of play best. But we haven't got many options, have we, up front? And you've really only got him and Chuba Akpom as centre forwards. And I think if you play them week in and week out, they'd both get burnt out really quickly. But it's a tough one, isn't it? I don't think we probably utilise Britt to the best of his strengths, but he still gets goals and he does miss chances. But that's something you just got to put up with. It goes with the territory. He's being a centre forward, doesn't it?
Yeah. But like I say, he does have his moments where he can be unplayable at times, and there was some points in his game that fans will obviously get on the back of him for. But I think Britt Sommerlonger is a proven striker in the Championship, and he's always has been for the better part of a few years. So, I mean, to be honest, I can't really get on his back for anything, because just bear in mind, because he has had a career-threatening injury before at his time at Forest, and that sometimes can limit his speed a bit, and his playing style a bit.
Yeah, unless, as you said earlier, it was a disappointing defeat, but I think it's more the manner of it in some ways. I mean, the goals we conceded, they were very uncharacteristic of how we've been playing so far this season. And also, what really bugged a lot of Borough fans was the fact that Britt scored the penalty, got us back on level terms. We hadn't played very well, but you get the 2-2 with 7 minutes to go, and you think, do you know what? Take the point. It's not a bad point away from home. We haven't played our best. But then to concede 2 minutes later, it's like a real kick in the teeth, isn't it?
Yeah, I think what I think you and me were discussing before the show. I think it's what come down to. I think it was the fatigue from our two people. I think in particular, and that's Anthony Dykesteel and Paddy McNair. Because I think Paddy McNair, most notably, he's played a lot of games for both us and Northern Ireland. I think there was a couple of times in the game against Huddersfield where he did show that he was pretty much looked out of it physically. And Dykesteel, I think, just played out of his skin to the point where he was burned out, particularly in the last 20 minutes of the game. So it's just unfortunate that Josh Koroma popped up with the pace and power to obviously win the game for Huddersfield. And it's just unfortunate that we only came out of the John Smiths with just no points whatsoever.
Yeah. And as you say, it was disappointing. But do you think it's just a bit of a reality check, Joe? I mean, 14 games into the league season now, and that's probably our most or only really disappointing performance so far. And that's 14 games in. And yet we're still only 3 points off the playoffs. So do you think it's a reality check with people? Do you think we still should be realistically looking at the playoffs this year? What's your thoughts on that, pal?
I'd probably say I'll wait until like mid-January before I can predict where we're going to end up. I think in terms of whether we're going to go for the playoffs or whether I would settle for a mid-table finish to the season. But I think obviously most Borough fans will want the playoffs, obviously. But in my opinion, I'd just rather take a top half finish from where I look at things.
Yeah. I mean, I think most Borough fans, if they were being realistic at the start of the season, probably would have taken that, Joe, and say, build on what we did last year. If we get top half, that'll be great. But as we've said so many times this season, the Championship, the nature of it, there's some teams that really look good. And obviously, the 3 Premier League clubs that were relegated last season do look strong because of the squads that they've got and the resources at their disposal. But there really does look like a chance that anyone can really sneak into the playoff places this year. And I think that's maybe taking Borough fans a little bit by surprise and thinking, well, do you know what? We might make the playoffs this year. Why not give it a go? So I still think it's there. But as you say, I think if we finish top half this season, anywhere in the top half is progress. It's certainly a move up from last season. So, yeah. But, like, why not aim for the playoffs? I think it's a possibility.
Good so, yeah. Never say never, you know, because I think it's going to be a tight finish, I think, to the Championship this season, particularly when we've had no fans in the ground. So, I mean, anyone can get in the playoffs, anyone can get relegated, anyone can go up automatically. So it's going to be a strange finish to the season, I think, the way I look at it this season.
And talking to teams that are going to be up there and there or thereabouts, this week brings us 2 fixtures which are going to be really challenging, I think. On paper, they look difficult, but as you say, the games aren't played on paper. But we've got Swansea and Stoke this week, and those 2 games were pivotal in our upturning fortunes last season. Obviously, the Swansea home game was Jonathan Woodgate's last stand, and then the game following that in the Potteries was Neil Warnock's first in charge, where Borough got a crucial 2-0 victory. It's the Swans first on Wednesday night, Joe, and they, I think, are certainly going to be one of the sides that are going to be up at the top of the table this year. For you, who were they meant to look out for on Wednesday night?
Obviously, the top of the list has got to be Andre Ayew, I think, because I think he's a player that could very easily be playing in the Premier League at this moment in time, but he's opted to stay another year at Swansea, which I think is good for him, you know, because I would imagine having one Ayew brother playing in the Championship and one Ayew brother playing in the Premier League, obviously Jordan at Palace.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be the main threat. I think he's their top scorer so far this season. And I think another one we've got to look out for is obviously Jamal Lowe, who Swansea brought in from Wigan in this window. He's going to be them 2 up front are going to cause a real nightmare. And obviously a couple of people in particular Connor Roberts, who was on loan with us once upon a time, because I think Swansea do like to play like in the wing back system, which we've all come accustomed nowadays. But except the fact they play with two strikers rather than playing in the number 10 playing behind them. So, and obviously they've got players like Matt Grimes as well, and Carl Norton, another former Borough player as well. So they've got a good team, do Swansea, and they're going to certainly be up there back on the end of the season.
I think, like you say there about Connor Roberts, he's definitely a player that's he had a very, very brief spell at the Borough in the Gary Monk era, and he got one or two appearances, but not much. But he seems a player transformed in the last year. So he's obviously playing for Wales now, and I'm really impressed with him whenever I watch him on the television playing for Swansea. Saw him score the only goal at Forest yesterday, and obviously it's going to be a big game Wednesday night. First goal's a huge one. I mean, amazing stat there. I think Swansea have only lost, is it once in the last 22, or is it undefeated? I think actually in the last 22 games where they've scored first. So first goal is going to be crucial Wednesday night. Yeah,
I think if Swansea score first, you would consider it game over. But like I say, you can't predict anything in this league. But I saw them against Forest yesterday, and they did look impressive going forward. So it's obviously going to be a case of us defending for our lives, I think, for the first quarter of an hour of the game, pretty much.
Do you think it'll be a similar sort of game as, when we played Norwich a few weeks ago? A side that likes to have possession and can break really quickly, pass the ball out, really comfortable in possession. Do you think it'll be a similar sort of game to that, Joe?
Yeah, I think it'll be something similar, but I think we've got to look out for the fact that we do like to play the same formations as well. But I think it's just a case of we need to up our game from obviously the Huddersfield blip, and then we just got to take back because we've got other difficult games coming up. So we need to start strong, particularly against the side that are doing well at the moment at Swansea.
So go on then, give us your prediction for Wednesday night. What do you reckon it's going to be, Joe?
Swansea, I'll probably be happy to take a draw out of it, to be honest. So I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw.
Oh, more goals. I'll tell you what, goals are flying in Borough matches now. We had 3 last week against Derby, 5 goals at Huddersfield at the weekend. You reckon it'll be another 4? We'll see. I must admit, Joe, I wouldn't be disappointed with a draw on Wednesday night. I wouldn't think that'd be a bad result against a side like them. And following that, another challenging fixture at the weekend against Stoke City. They're just a point ahead of us currently. How do you see that one going?
There's definitely going to be goals because I think Stoke are just scoring goals for fun at the minute. And obviously, I'm looking at results where they have scored goals, and whether it's in wins or defeats. Obviously, they beat Huddersfield 4-3 the other week, and then got beat 3-2 by Norwich. I think it was this past weekend or the last week just gone. So I think there's definitely going to be goals, and they've got goals in their team. Tyrese Campbell is saying it's going to be one of them we've got to watch out for. Yeah. And then obviously James McLean, I think he's having the season of his life at the moment. And also you got the likes of Stephen Fletcher, who can cause a threat in the air as well.
Yeah.
So it might be another high-scoring game, I think, down at the Bet365.
So can we repeat the 2-0 win we got there last season, Joe? Or what you're expecting Saturday? What would you take from Stoke?
I'll probably go with the same result as Norwich beat them the other day. So I'm going to go for the 3-2 Borough win at Stoke.
I'll tell you what, that would be great. That, like Paddy was saying, that was on the show last week, 4 points from your 2 games during the week, that would be great. And to be honest, I think if we get 4 points from the Stoke and Swansea games, that'll be a hell of a return and really set us up for the fixtures that come after that. We're just doing a short show tonight because you're going to take over at 7 o'clock and do the FA Cup draw. And you're going to do that live on Facebook, Joe. Before I let you go tonight off the Monday night show, it's a special date in the footballing calendar, FA Cup 3rd round day. And it is going to be a little bit different this year because fans aren't in the ground at most places. But who would you fancy getting in the draw? Obviously, we had Tottenham at home last year, which was a huge game. Would you like to see a big side against the Borough again in the third round, or would you like to see us take on one of the minnows? Who do you fancy pulling out in the hat in the next few minutes?
It depends really, because obviously we can't go to the game anyways, obviously because of COVID restrictions, unfortunately. But most fans would rather have a decent cup run than some people that don't. But preferably, I'd like to start off with a team in the lower ranks first, and obviously, if we do go further, then obviously we'll put a Premier League side. But I'll just rather take on anyone. I'd rather have the Borough take on anyone, to be honest, James.
Yeah, and you're happy to have a cup run. You wouldn't see it as a distraction. You don't want to just focus on the league. You just think maybe confidence will build the more games you win. What's your thoughts on that, Joe?
Well, at the end of the day, obviously we do go through to the later on rounds. There's a bit of money in the kitty, which I think most clubs will probably value, in the current circumstances that there is in the moment. So, obviously a good cup run will obviously give us a bit of money in the kitty. Hopefully we'll go towards transfers in the next month's transfer window. But we'll see how it goes. Wherever we get in the cup, we'll go for it.
Yeah. Daz's football standard said he would like to see us get Marine. That would be good, but can't see it. Well, you never know. You've got a 1 in 63 chance of getting them, Dazza. So you never know. I think there's going to be at least four non-league teams in the next round. So there's a possibility we could pull out a non-league team, and I think that would be a game that would get a lot of media coverage if you say it did get one of those sides. But all will be revealed in the next sort of 30 minutes, and Joe's going to do that on Borough Fan TV on the Facebook page live. He's going to do the draw. So I'm going to let you get set up with all that, Joe. Thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate it, pal.
No worries, man.
Okay. Hope it's a successful week for Borough this week. Thanks to everybody for watching out there and contributing to the show as always. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Borough Fan TV and check our content in what's going to be a very busy week for the Borough. Until next Monday, from myself and Joe, good night and up the Borough.
Up the Borough.